Here's the thing about Sylvester Stallone, something no one ever really brings up. Forget the famous music, the training montages, the arms. I'm talking about something quieter, heavier, the kind of truth that doesn't fade after you hear it. The man whose name became a global anthem for not giving up, for clawing your way off the mat, spent his whole life carrying around something most of us couldn't imagine. It's a weight no amount of muscle fixes, and it lives deeper than any Hollywood punch. This isn't just another action hero saga. It's the kind of story that doesn't get made into movies, even if it ends up shaping one of the most iconic movie characters of all time. It's about a kid everyone decided was broken before he even had a shot, and who spent decades fighting to prove them wrong. Only, somewhere along the way, he found the toughest enemy wasn't the world outside, but the world inside, and that was the one fight he couldn't just grit his way through. Let's go all the way back to where it actually began. Not in a gym, not in a movie studio, in a stuffy New York hospital room, July 6, 1946. Stallone wasn't even a minute old when everything went sideways. A mistake by the delivery staff. They used forceps wrong, tore up the nerves in his face, his body, marked forever before anyone even held him. His mouth didn't work right. His speech came out rough, awkward, hard to understand. Half his face wouldn't move the way faces are supposed to. Imagine what that does to a kid before the world even gets a look at you. For most parents, that would be the moment the protectiveness flips on, full blast. You shield your kid, tell the world he's worth everything. But the Stallone home wasn't built that way. His dad saw his damaged face and felt embarrassed, even ashamed. At his own son, can you imagine? Warmth got rationed out, barely there at all. His mom, she ran after social status, image, appearances. To her, he was a complication, not a child. Love wasn't given for free. Every bit had to be earned. Stallone said later he never felt wanted, just tolerated, and even that was rare. It gets worse. When his parents split up, the little structure he had just dissolved, he got shuffled around between relatives, bounced from boarding school to institution like leftover luggage. No roots, no room of his own, nothing steady to lean on. School wasn't a refuge. Kids, we know, can be ruthless. Different is a neon target to them. They twisted their mouths, mocked the way he talked, turned every struggle into a running joke. And teachers weren't much better. A slur in his voice became a mark against his mind. Slow, trouble, lost cause. They just slapped labels on him. So anger became his default response. Rage was his shield. Fists took the place of words, and getting kicked out of school became routine. He wasn't dumb. He was just fighting the only way he knew how. Then, at 16, everything seemed to fall apart, final and unfixable. His mom basically shipped him out, sent him to a Swiss boarding school, not for an opportunity, but to get rid of him. He barely spoke the language. He felt abandoned on a good day. Far from home, isolated, he started to crack. That storm of anger folded itself inward and turned into depression, thick and endless. He thought about ending it. The thought that nobody would notice if he vanished, that's the poison he carried around. He almost jumped, and the only thing that stopped him wasn't hope or love, it was stubbornness. I won't give them the satisfaction. That's all he had. So that's how he survived. By sheer reluctant stubbornness, nothing heroic about it, just a refusal to give in. He came back to America with nothing but $40, no degree, not even a plan. And here's the part that grabs me every single time. After spending his life being told, "You're wrong for this world," he decided he wanted to be an actor. That's not just confidence, it's a defiant brand of hope, the kind that borders on madness. He chose a profession where you live or die by how you look, sound, and feel to other people, after spending his whole life being mocked for exactly those things. Every audition was a new rejection. Some would just wave him out the door before he could finish. Casting agents told him straight up, "You're not what we want." He wound up cleaning animal cages at the zoo, shoveling filth for pennies. When he couldn't swing rent, he slept in bus stations, wrapped up tight on benches while guards kicked him awake. He ran out of things to pawn. And then comes the gut punch. Stallone sold his dog. Butkus was loyal. the only being who didn't flinch at the sight of him. He sold him outside a liquor store, cold and desperate, for $50. Years later, he couldn't even tell the story without choking up. That was rock bottom. And yet, all it took was one night and one fight on TV to light something up inside him. 1975, in his cramped, lonely apartment, barely holding on. He watches Ali and Wepner. Wepner, far from a champion, just keeps getting punched. Everyone expects him to stay down, but he keeps rising, round after grueling round. Stallone saw pieces of his own beaten-up soul inside that ring. So he told. He locked himself away and channeled all his pain, all those years of rejection and isolation, into his typewriter. 3 sleepless days and nights later, he had Rocky. Not just a script, but a confession. Because Rocky Balboa isn't made up. He's every humiliation, every kick when you're down, every impossible dream that won't die quietly. Hollywood wanted that story. The offers were wild. 75 grand, then more, then more. For a guy who'd been sleeping on benches, that kind of money changes everything. But nobody wanted him to play Rocky. They wanted a different face, a safe bet, someone who sounded right. The one thing they wouldn't buy was him. Everyone told him to take the money and move on. Friends, his wife. What sane person wouldn't? But Stallone dug in. Because the point wasn't just to see Rocky in a movie, it was to finally see himself. To be heard and seen on his own terms. And honestly, when you strip everything else away, that's the part that lingers. That's the weight he'd carried, the thing stronger than any uppercut. The stubborn, bone-deep need to be allowed to tell your own story, no matter how many people say you aren't worth listening to. So the studio finally said yes, but let's be real. It wasn't because they believed in Stallone. He just wore them down. His determination left no room for negotiation, so they agreed to make his movie, but slashed his pay to just $35,000 and gave him a shoestring budget, $1 million. Barely enough to scrape by. It was the least they could offer while still keeping their promise. No goodwill, just grudging compliance. Filming was rough. Philadelphia in winter, freezing winds, barely any resources. They borrowed equipment because buying was out of the question. Most of the extras were locals, volunteering, or unpaid, just people wanting to be part of something. Stallone took real punches, literally getting hit to save money on choreography. Pain wasn't an act, he actually endured it. It was gritty, desperate, and honest. But what Stallone did first with his paycheck, that's the part that always hits me hardest. He hunted down the guy who'd bought his dog, Butkus. 15 grand, just to get that dog back, and he didn't care about the price tag. Butkus had been his one companion in the bleakest chapter of his life. Reuniting wasn't just about the dog, it was about getting a piece of himself back after years of being stripped down. That detail, I don't even know why it undoes me, but it does. There's something different about that kind of loyalty, the way you fight for what matters when everything else feels lost. Rocky came out on November 21st, 1976. But people didn't just watch it. Everyone felt it in their bones. It wasn't polished, it was real. Hope poured out of every frame, even when there was no guarantee. The movie exploded, raking in over $200 million worldwide and winning Best Picture at the Oscars. And Stallone, the guy they said would never make it, who'd slept in bus stations, who had to sell his dog just to survive, stood on that stage, nominated for Best Actor and Best Screenplay. After that, things took off. You know the drill. Rocky II, Rocky III, Q Eye of the Tiger, Rocky IV, the Cold War boxing match, everyone glued to their screens. Rambo followed. A whole new story. Stallone shifted gears, played a quieter, darker character. First Blood wasn't just action. It wrestled with the question of what happens when society uses up young men, then discards them. Audiences got it, the pain rang true. By the mid-80s, Stallone was everywhere, highest paid actor in the world. Fame was total, but the pressure was suffocating. Each film demanded more, bigger, tougher, more unbreakable. His body couldn't keep up, and behind the scenes, that sense of being trapped started to grow. The thing that made him famous became his cage. Then the 90s came rolling in, and wow, it was brutal. Culture shifted. Sincerity lost its shine. People wanted something else. Irony, youth, novelty. Stallone's films didn't land. The world moved past him fast. Stop. Or, My Mom Will Shoot turned into a punchline, Judge Dredd tanked, and late-night hosts made him a recurring gag. People said his time was over. He felt invisible again, but this time it was worse. Fame faded, but the spotlight still burned. He sold properties, downsized, watched old friends drift away as his star dimmed. The Stallone you saw in interviews then, he had a softer bravado, laugh that didn't quite ring true. He quietly admitted he worried he'd never work again. And you know what? He didn't just quit. I love this about him. That stubbornness, the same grit that carried him before, never left. He started writing again for himself, not for trends or studios, just quietly, just honestly. But then came something no amount of resilience could have prepared him for. In July 2012, his eldest son Sage was found dead in his LA home. 36 years old, Sage was the kid who'd been there through everything, the rises, the falls, the silence, and now he was gone. Stallone was silent for weeks, no public drama. He was gutted. Friends said he was hollowed out. Grief stripped him bare in a way humiliation and poverty never could. He later said, "Losing your child isn't a wound that heals. You just learn to carry it, and some days it's too heavy to lift." That's the thing movies never really tell us. Some fights aren't winnable. Some losses don't make you stronger. They just stay, forever, always somewhere in the background. When Stallone returned as Rocky in Creed, playing an older, lonelier Rocky grappling with cancer and memories, he wasn't pretending. He lived every moment. You could see it, in every quiet look, every pause, every line that seemed held back by real pain. The Oscar nomination wasn't just for acting. It was for honesty, for carrying something so raw, so personal, that it transformed the story. He's still working, Creed 2, Tulsa King, roles that fit a man who's aging gracefully. He trains every day, not to be larger than life, but to stay disciplined. That discipline is the one thing that's never left his side, through every chapter. Home is different now. He's surrounded by his wife and 3 daughters, and he's softened. He admits his girls gave him a reason to be gentle without losing himself. Scholarships, quiet donations, help for kids who don't get a shot. He does all that without fanfare, because he understands what it's like to not be seen, to need someone and find nobody there. He's 79, the facial paralysis from birth still there. The memories of bus stations and hunger still close. The day he had to hand butkus to a stranger for $50, it never goes away. But most of all, that loss of his son is the wound that nothing has healed. Not Oscars, not sequels, not standing ovations. Yet here he is, still standing. Rocky was always more than a character. It was Stallone's confession. A man who loses more than he wins, who doubts, who ages, who takes hits that have nothing to do with boxing, but still keeps getting up. And thinking about that boy in Switzerland, on the edge, holding on just to prove them wrong. How many of us have stood somewhere similar, quietly, carrying something too heavy, wondering if it's worth the fight? That's why Rocky still makes people cry. It's not about boxing, it's about choosing to stand up again. Not because you know it'll work out, but because you just can't let go yet. Neither could Stallone. So, if this story resonates with you at all, I truly want to hear it. A Rocky scene, a Stallone moment. Did it stick with you? Tell me. And if you know someone who needs to be reminded that it's okay to keep going even when the odds are stacked, share this. Chances are, they need it more than you think. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.